and not just in the sort of barefoot lifestyle, but in this minimalist lifestyle, in this simplification lifestyle, in the healthy lifestyle, because health is all about reducing, about taking away, about allowing the body to be the body, and allowing yourself to work through this life. It's not about being successful all the time.
Lend me your ears.
This nation will rise up.
Welcome to the Elemental Health Podcast. Welcome back to this week's episode. I'm Nick Quinton. I'm your host here at the Elemental Health Podcast, and we have got an incredible guest for you guys this week, and it is truly an incredible conversation. I'm finding it hard to find words to describe the depth of the conversation and kind of how much it resonated with me. I record these intros after I've had the conversations, I've had the interviews, and I've sort of had a think about what I want to say to introduce the person. And the conversation with Jeff has kind of just got my head spinning and blown my mind, and I've been thinking about it ever since we had that conversation, which is kind of a couple of days ago, since this recording. And just that kind of gives you an insight into the impact that the conversation's had on my life. So I'm really interested to know how you guys find this one. It's truly a very, very different way of thinking about things, and we go deep into the weeds. Jeff is a unique individual, and the way he is changing and structuring his life is definitely different to a lot of the common streams, common edicts that are out there in the world. And we definitely chat about that, his approach to natural movement, barefoot movement, and helping people is phenomenal. And we have a really interesting conversation about all those aspects, and kind of get hopefully you as the listener thinking about things in a very, very different way. Really is mind-blowing. So stick with it, and let me know how you get on. And here we have the Urban Barefoot himself, Jeff Shub. Jeff, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for jumping on with me all the way from Miami. And the guys and girls that are listening have heard a little bit about you in the intro that I've done, but I just want to sort of say hello. And we've already started chatting through some really interesting concepts and ideas, and I'm really excited about how the conversation is going to unfold.
So we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, so and that's always fun, because then we have more to dig into. But thank you for having me. I'm so grateful. Again, like I said before, I'm still in a little bit of wonder and lots of excitement around being invited to share my thoughts. It's just so it's amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's dive straight into kind of your story, if you like, and where you've come from, the journey that you've been on to kind of where you are now, and your current kind of view of the world and what you're up to.
So I guess where I'd like to start is by saying that I find it very interesting, and just it's something I think about often, the journey that each one of us is on, and really just having total acceptance and gratitude for every step in the journey that you take. So that being said, for me, it seems like my whole life has been leading me to this point of talking and helping people to rebuild relationships with their whole body, but specifically with their feet. Little things that happen throughout my life that have just shaped this relationship that I have with my feet, and everything just having happened perfectly. Even though in those moments I may have felt frustrated, or like I wasn't doing the right thing, or like something was disconnected, it all has led me to here now. So when I say that, I mean, I went to medical school, and the whole time during medical school, I felt just really unhappy and really disconnected because I didn't see that the medical system was doing what they were saying they were doing, which is, trying to help people. It's really just, I've come to understand it as really advanced pharmaceutical rep training, which is the kind of crazy thought. We can maybe dive into that a little bit, but having gone through medical school, having learned the human body in an incredibly in-depth way, having learned what that system believes is right, has really helped to contribute to my knowledge and to my ability to have an intelligent conversation. And the funnier thing is that during medical school, I was always really focused on orthopedic surgery because, it's very movement heavy. It's a lot of physics, which is something that I've always really been passionate about. But specifically, I did research under one of the most prolific foot and ankle surgeons of our time. And so, the foot and ankle, it keeps coming up. Even, when I was little, they used to call me the shoe kid. Like, I used to have a lot of, like, even as a very young child, my mom said I used to love sneakers, and and then I used to collect sneakers later on. And like, I have a closet full of all the Nikes and Adidas and Jordans, and it's all just so funny. So now I have all these shoe boxes everywhere, and they're shoe boxes of a totally different, mindset and a totally different way of living. And it's so funny to see the interplay of, the old and the new, and just how I've totally shifted my perception of what is cool, what is functional, what is it that I need to do for myself in this world. So, and
wow,
maybe I got a little far on that one, but
no. So yeah, I mean, what I love about the way you express yourself is you can see the kind of the passion over kind of what you're talking about. It's just permeates through you, and that's kind of how I am sometimes when I talk about health and fitness as well. But I just want to kind of be a little bit granular, because I think, I've got a clinical background, pre-hospital care as a paramedic in the UK, which is a little bit different to the US role, as I understand it. So the title's the same, but the role is very different. The healthcare system, as you know, is different in this country anyway. But so I've got that clinical background as well. And that's another reason why I wanted to talk to you, because I think kind of we're kindred spirits in that mindset of, what we've got in terms of a healthcare system, in the auspice of the structure of what everyone thinks we've got is very broken. Whether it be in the US, the UK, Australia, the Western healthcare system is completely broken at this stage. And your journey from kind of medical school to where you are now is for me is mind-boggling, fascinating, and akin to what I'm kind of the path I'm on. I think you probably evolved your thinking a little bit more. You maybe further ahead down the path, a little bit further down the path.
There's no such thing. They're just different. They're just different paths. There's no measurement. It's just where you are.
So you wanted to be an orthopod, and then what happened? What were the kind of key changes, shifts that led you down a different path?
Yeah. So I wanted to do orthopedic surgery really, and I thought about this often. It was the least medical specialty in medicine.
Yeah.
And so when I got to medical school, I was really excited because I'm very passionate about human body and the brain, which obviously are totally interconnected and cannot act separately from each other. But I just really like, the behavioral aspect of it and the physiological aspect of the human body. And, in medical school, when you start off, you get the first, 2 months is anatomy, and you're dissecting bodies, you're studying it, you're diving really deep. And it was so exciting and so much fun. And then all of a sudden there's this, sort of seamless transition to breaking the body down into organ systems. And if there's this problem, you give this pill. If there's this problem, you give them this injection or this surgery. And I said, hold on a second. This is not what I signed up for. This is madness. And I went through it because you always, sometimes when you're in a kind of in an unhealthy relationship, you just kind of stick with it because you don't want to quit, and you see something special. And I did still see something special about medicine, and there are some sides of it that are beautiful, especially the critical, acute care. You break a bone, you got to fix it a lot of the times, not always, but you got to fix it. Otherwise, you're gonna have a pretty unfortunate movement life. If you have a heart attack, a stroke, anything like any of these really serious acute things, medicine is awesome. They keep you alive. They've performed miracles. I've seen them, but almost everything else is just a little sketchy. And the more I've read into it, the more I've realized that the current day medical system is the product of manipulation by people and companies who had a financial incentive to create more awareness and just a more in-depth training around how to use the drugs that are being created. And so that's why I said, they're just really advanced pharmaceutical rep training, because it's really what I've come to understand about it. And I say that from personal experience of going through it, not from, some conspiracy or anything like that. I just really got that vibe. And, I did it for 5 years. And towards the end, I just took a really hard look at myself and I said, this is not something that I can be part of. And I admire the people who realized it as well and have stayed in it and have tried to make changes from the inside. But my calling and what I felt I needed to do was to go out and figure out how to make big changes from the outside.
Cool. Well, I respect that, and I agree with everything you're saying. So, where are you now? What are you focusing on? And how are you providing that message to the world?
So for me, like you brought this up, that I speak with a lot of passion, a lot of excitement, and that's really just the core of everything that I do. I after medical school, I went out into the business world, and eventually started a podiatry group practice with a business partner who's a podiatrist, and we built a pretty big group. And me being the wellness guy, I kept digging and trying to figure out, what does wellness mean in podiatry? And then eventually I figured it out after reading, listening to podcasts, research. I sort of dove into it, and then eventually all the dots connected, and I said, wow, hold on a second. We're doing this all wrong. And so it's going back to, the medical school story. It's like I realized that something's wrong, and I tried to start making changes within my team. And at the same time, I started to talk about this online. So I created the Urban Barefoot as just kind of a case study in my experiment on how to implement this in my life in a big city, not moving to the forest and being barefoot. Like, how does this apply in the real world setting? And I started talking about it, but at the same time, I was being pulled farther and farther apart from my group because the docs just didn't care, right? They have their own training, and they think that orthotics are the right move, and that, everybody's sort of inherently flawed, and we must help them to be less flawed. And so eventually, once the Urban Barefoot started to grow and take on a life of its own, and really fueled by my passion, it started to pull away from the practice. And eventually I had to say, I had to make the really tough decision again to just leave my piece of the business behind and just move forward. And it was very hard because, I raised this child. I birthed this child and I raised it. And to have to let it go was really tough. But, as I go deeper into this journey of just gratitude and happiness, I realize that it's these moments, these like ego crushing, destroying moments that just like open up a whole new world of possibility in your mind and make you realize that it's more than it's not about you, right? It's about this planet. It's about everybody. It's about us working all together. And it's just been like, every ego crushing moment gets me closer and closer to enlightenment, I feel, these days. And I've just like, I've come to take everything in as beautiful and amazing, no matter what.
Awesome. So what's your view? So many questions in my mind. But what first comment I've got is you clearly have got a best way to express it. So you've got an incredible level of awareness, I would say, around who you are, the direction you want to travel in, and what doesn't work, and what your message is, and how to get behind it. In terms of your evolution and your breakaway from kind of the mainstream medicine, podiatry, into kind of what you do now, which is much more of a natural approach to wellness, what kind of came first? Your kind of the breakaway, and then the kind of the more spiritual awareness side of things, or are they two intertwined, or does one follow the other? What was the initial?
Yeah, so I'm asked this question, but like, where did your journey start? Well, obviously it started when I was born. But actually before, probably, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was very practical about, just only believing the things that I've seen. But as I've dug in more and more, I've really started to understand this concept of the soul and the soul's age, and I really have identified myself compared to other people around me that are very close to me, within my family. And I've noticed the soul ages, like people who, I come from a very rigid structure of family where the adults are always right, the kids shut up and listen. And that's just, it's a conservative family. But I've started to notice that I feel my soul as an older, as in its older version than a lot of the people who are older than me. And I've started to really understand that. But I think that a really big turning point was when I was leaving medical school, and when I made that really difficult decision, because it is very difficult. I mean, you have this structured, perfect, roadmap to success, right? Making money. And then I had this girlfriend, and it was like, on paper, perfect. Our families knew each other, and it was like the whole perfect structure. And then that, within a matter of like 2 weeks, I made the hard decision to leave that. And I made the other hard decision to leave that relationship. And all of a sudden my world flipped upside down, right? And that was like one of the first big ego crushing moments for me. Like, and so that, I think that sparked the journey. But it really started to kick into high gear once I started to do, to dig in more into the barefoot movement and to just educate myself, and in so doing, educating the community. It really started to show me that there are many, many things that I had a incorrect awareness about, and it helped me to start to ask the really, really hard questions, and to really lean into this idea that asking the hard questions is the only right thing to do. Since I was very young, I've always questioned the way of things, but I always used to doubt myself and my questioning of it. So, once I started to talk about the barefoot movement is when I really started to the curve of growth started to go up. And then recently, over the last, I'd say, once I left the practice and I had the next big ego crushing experience, it started to like hockey stick into a whole new plane of possibility. And just, I think more so than anything, creating awareness around the fact that I am capable of doing whatever I need to do to just live in my truth, and to find out who I really am.
Okay.
Maybe.
So,
hopefully that helps.
Well, no, yeah, it's really interesting that the way you thread it together, because I think that's fairly unique as well. I think people, we ask these questions and we want kind of like single bullets, a bit like medicine, right? You want to see a pill solution to the question. Exactly. And it's not that simple. And I like the way that you kind of resist the urge to give kind of like bullet point answers. I respect that. There's a couple of things that I want to sort of dive into on that one. Is so I really want your view on. So you've gone through that medical system, and what's your view on kind of why it doesn't work in terms of people getting the right advice, that to actually uncover their own truth? Because I think my kind of view is that people don't really understand how to dig at that truth, and therefore in terms of health they go and seek a quote unquote professional's view, and then that professional is just inclined to be empathetic and sympathetic in potentially a long-term detrimental effect, if I phrase it like that. And therefore we get in this cycle of, I don't understand the direction I'm moving in. I'm going to ask someone supposedly who knows more about my health. They're going to give me an answer that actually threads back to the reason why I can't find my own path. And it creates effectively a downward spiral to someone's health. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah. So where it starts is that we have to realize how the modern day health system came about, and it was really people who had a financial incentive in creating pharmaceutical drugs, having the amazing insight, because this is genius. Like this whole thing is that they did was absolutely genius. So these people who are actually, it was the people who created the precursors for the pharmaceutical drugs, selling it to I guess they probably own some of those companies, the pharmaceutical companies themselves as well. But they said, the medical system today, this was back probably a century ago. The medical system was kind of a joke, right? It was people didn't have a lot of respect in that world, and it was just kind of weird and fuzzy. So they said, you know what, we're gonna structure this better. We're gonna create the educational content for these schools. But it was all created with the intention of teaching them how to use drugs, and then in the process, having Eastern medicine become like voodoo magic, right? So demonizing the other side of medicine, and then sort of propping up and creating some really interesting, like what's the word I'm looking for, is like wonder around all these amazing drugs and all the things that they can do. But so this is not real health. This is medicine, right? Medicine is how you use medications to treat people, which as we know now, is just not working, right? It's just not working. And then once you go down farther, you go down generations, people have totally lost this concept of where the modern medical system came from, right? And then now, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So they're like, these are the most respected people in the world, I'm going to go see a doctor. And then to the doctor, as the hammer, everything looks like a nail. And people come in, are you depressed? We're going to give you this medication. Wait, you have some pain in your wrist? Let's get an MRI, right? And I was talking about this with a doctor friend who recently sold all of his, he's very successful, sold all his businesses, and has been on this journey of rediscovering himself and tapping into the sort of limiting beliefs and the mental models that he's had around his life. And he's like, he's telling me about a friend of his who many years ago bought this MRI machine, and he's like a rheumatologist, and he was getting MRIs of every single person with rheumatoid arthritis, of their hands and their feet, wrists, ankles, feet, hands. And the guy calls my friend, and he's like, so happy and excited, and telling him about this MRI machine, and he's got to get one. This guy's making a killing. He's making so much money with this MRI machine. And my friend asked him, so wait a second, when did you start ordering MRIs for your rheumatoid patients? And he's like, oh, 11 months ago. He's like, oh, and how long have you had the machine? 11 months ago. So you're saying that before you had this MRI machine, you never used to order it, and now all of a sudden that you have it, you feel compelled to order it. And it's just beyond the belief that drugs and pills and injections help people. Now there's this like, oh, I got this machine and it makes me so much money, so I'm going to use it, even though there is no purpose, real need for it. And that's why that's part of why the U.S. healthcare system is so completely broken and backwards, is because there's just this total abuse of the system. And a lot of it stems from, I can speak from experience because I own the medical practice, is a very deep distrust and disappointment with the health insurance system. So the health insurance, they really abuse doctors. Like I was there, and the compensation is kind of a joke. And so doctors, what do? They say, you know what? I'm going to go order all these tests and I'm going to run your bill up to as high as you'll regulatorily allow me to do, and screw you. But what they realize is, it's like the story of the right arm. The left arm gets cut off and the right arm says, I don't know how to fix this. I can't do anything. Sorry. Right. So what happens? Like everyone dies, they're cutting off their own arms. They're creating a bigger burden on the system and on the country as a whole, on the world as a whole, because as we know, the U.S. economy impacts the entire world in a really, really profound way.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, and I think it's
going back, it's misinformation, it's misinterpretation, and a lot of wounds and trauma that medical professionals experience in dealing with these very large, very abusive systems like health insurance companies.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you. And in the UK, we have quote unquote free healthcare. It's not free. It's not free. And that brings different challenges.
It's included.
Yeah, that brings different challenges. But actually, my understanding, having spoken to lots of guys in the US, is the problems are fundamentally the same. Actually,
yes,
we're all in the same cycle. It doesn't matter that the kind of got the American kind of, as we think of it, very expensive system, and ours is kind of the free system. Neither of those are the realities, but actually the synergies are really, really strong, and we're moving more and more in that direction of kind of like more cost, more drugs, blah blah blah. But what I guess what I'm drilling into what you're saying, I want to go further, because what the analogy I have is kind of someone has ill health. Now, obviously, there's a series of events that have led them to that. If we don't think about those series of events for the moment, we think about that interaction with a quote unquote professional. So they go and speak to their doctor. The analogy I have is that they've got holes in their boat and they're trying to sail it, and the doctor has given them a better bucket to bail out the water that's coming in. So but and that's, I guess I'm simplifying it, but at the level I'm at, it is obvious. It's obvious. Do you know what I mean? When someone is type 2 diabetic, and they're looking at altering their insulin levels, or changing from glycoside onto another or something, and you're kind of like, well, we're just changing a bucket, but we're still bailing out at even a higher increased frequency. No one's looking at the holes. Yeah. It is that, in my mind, it is that simple, and I don't really understand. So what's broken that we're not able to see what's right in front of us in terms of the truth, the situation, and what changes need to be made?
Yeah, well, again, it's this training around how to use drugs. They don't know how to fix diabetes. They don't have the tools to help people fix their problem. They only have the tools, like you said, to give them a bigger, more powerful bucket to get the water faster out of the boat. But it goes farther than that, because not only they're giving them a bigger bucket, but the person is poking bigger holes in their boat at the same time, because they don't they have there's this false belief that, oh, I'm taking this insulin, I'm taking this metformin, I can do whatever I want, right? I can eat whatever I want because I'm going to be okay, because this insulin is going to help me to not get hyperglycemic or hypoglycemic, or have a whatever it is that that these people suffer from. And you know what it is. They get the neuropathies, they get their eyes are heavily impacted, their kidneys explode. The physicians today don't understand how to heal people. They know how to treat people, and they know how to manage their symptoms. The majority, and I'm generalizing, but as a whole, as a majority, they don't know how to help people. And there's this really big disconnection of the understanding that the human body has all of the tools that it needs to heal itself. You just need to create the right environment for the leveraging of these tools. So I'll give you an example, and I love that you brought up type 2 diabetes, and I've said this story before, but there's this guy, he's been diabetic 15 years, didn't take care of himself, insulin, 24-hour long-acting IM insulin every night, metformin, whatever his dose was, I'm not sure. Been doing this for 15 years, gone to 8 different doctors. And it took me a year of he works at this place that I go to once a week, and it took me a year of going back to this place, and having these little small conversations, and him shrugging it off, laughing. It would just be me talking about what I'm doing for myself, fasting, barefooting, training, blah 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 blah. And he kind of used to make fun of me, but like in a really playful, like we had a really good relationship. And then one day I come in, and the conversation changed, and he was asking the questions, and he was trying to figure things out for himself, finally creating some awareness. And where did that come from? I don't know, right? So like I've started to think a lot about like the awareness of awareness, right? That there's something that happens before awareness. There's the inquisitiveness, right? Like the desire to want to know more, which happens before awareness, which I still haven't totally figured out. But anyway, going back to the story, we came down to a specific protocol around fasting that we were going to test out with him, and literally in a matter of 2 weeks, he completely stopped his insulin, stopped metformin, was checking his blood glucose levels still on the same basis, and his levels were in the 80s and 90s. 2 weeks, 15 years, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But remember I said it took me a year, right? And the moment that the healing happened for him was the moment that his brain switched to desire to look for more. And then it just took 2 weeks for the physical manifestation of the shift in mindset, right? So the body is a physical representation of the mind, of your thoughts, and all it takes is a shift in thought, and then it's just a matter of time before it displays itself physically.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's an awesome story. I really, wow, respect to you for kind of helping him on his journey and reversing that. And actually, it's funny because we've had someone else on the podcast. She was a nutritionist in the first series, and her father contracted type 2 diabetes, and she helped to educate her mom, and they reversed it relatively quickly. I mean, you're saying 2 weeks once they've made that mental shift. But we rely on our tacit knowledge. We rely on what we've done to dictate what we do. And I think that's the trap. As we get older, I'm always saying it's not just our bones that calcify if we don't use them. It's our brain starts calcifying, and we start to think that we know everything as we get older. Whereas as a youth, you want to learn lots of things. You want to constantly change your approach and finding what works. And that's the guys I coach. I encourage them to constantly be challenging what I'm telling them, what they're saying to themselves, and that narrative, and kind of querying those stories and trying to understand more and more and more about what's going on, and new approaches, different approaches. Because if you think what you know now is going to get you through the next 10 years, then you're surely mistaken, and you're going to fall down all the traps that thinking you know everything,
so there's a couple of things there. And one thing that I've been thinking about is, people see the work that we're doing on ourselves, and they think that we're on a journey to, be more successful, make more money. And that's really not what it's about. However, there are people who, or sort of more like the proof, there are people who have not done any work on themselves, right? Who are totally kind of asleep, and, no offense to them, they are where they need to be in their journey, and that's perfectly fine. But the people who scare me the most are the people who are asleep and have been very successful in their life, financially successful, because when you're asleep, your measure of success is always financial. Those people are nearly impossible to change, because they have seen their desires come true within the mental models that exist for them, and they create this like super mega ego, right? Because they have a pretty big ego already, which is part of being asleep, is like having this huge ego dictating your life and your decisions, and like it's all about you, and everyone, anyone who doesn't do what you want is crossing you. And then they're financially successful, which is feeding the ego, and just creating this mega super barrier ego that like you just may never break through ever. So it's funny, because a few months ago I was having this conversation with this guy I met at a party of, a friend's birthday party, and I was explaining to him that, there's really nothing that can affect me negatively that will change the course that I'm on right now. And he was really interested in that. And I started to say that I started to use the words I've started to build a wall so big that I feel protected. But then I stopped. I said, wait a second, that's actually not true. The truth is that I've just totally shattered all the walls. Like, I totally just knocked them down and said, hey, everybody, this is me. Come in, let's party, right? Let's have a good time. And I have nothing to hide, right? Like, I have no shame, nothing to hide. And when you do that, you're totally empowered. Like, you control the narrative, you control your story. My friend, the doctor, we were talking about this a couple nights ago, and he actually brought up the 8 Mile and Eminem's movie. Mm-hmm. And in one part, he's going up at the end in this really big rap battle, and it's like, a lot of tension, very nervous. Everyone's very, and then all of a sudden Eminem comes out, and instead of dissing the other guy and doing the thing, he lists every single flaw of himself, every single one, right? Like, his mom's an alcoholic, dad's not present, he lives in a trailer, and he like tore down all the walls, and there was nothing anybody could do to hurt him now, because he had exposed all of his flaws, but really he just totally empowered himself. So like, how is it that revealing all of your flaws gives you so much ability to control your story and to just regain control of your life? And I think that is something super interesting. Like, I think it's just extremely powerful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I agree. And I think I love that Eminem scene for sure. It captures the essence of what you're saying perfectly. And we get caught up in we get caught up in listening to the ego. You know, the analogy that I'm always drawn to, and I'm going to butcher it, is a fable about the two wolves. You know, we all have two wolves that live inside of us. There's a good wolf and a bad wolf, and the young child says to the grandfather, who, you know, the two wolves are fighting, which one wins? And the answer is the one you feed. And that's, I think, linked directly in my interpretation to the ego. And, you know, there are two voices in our head. One is linking us to whatever you want to call it, that spiritual essence and that kind of consciousness. And the other one is the ego. Now, you need both, otherwise we'd all be just one blob, and that effectively creates our own identity, is the ego mind. But I think a lot of people are walking around and they think that the big voice, the loud voice, is the big voice, which is the ego, and that's the one they're listening to. Well, I think, you know, if you're able to, and I'm not saying I'm there, if you're able to elevate your kind of your thinking and your awareness, then you start to understand that the ego is the very small voice within your mind, and actually what you need to be listening to is that much bigger, wiser voice, which is that consciousness, and linking us all together and taking it from there. I can guess that's my comment on that.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the ego shattering moments, right? Those are the times where you start that, you know, they may seem like unfortunate events, but really they're the most beautiful opportunities that you have in your life to sort of rebuild your understanding of how this all works. You know, the two minds and whatnot. This guy Tim Urban, who's the author of Wait But Why. It's just this blog. You may know he just started this series about like this. It's called The Story of Us, and the guy just has an incredible way of using words to describe really powerful concepts. And it's all about, he's releasing it in chapters, and he just released chapter 1, I think, yesterday. And chapter 1 is all about exactly what you're talking about, the two minds. And what, you know, he paints it as a really cool, funny dashboard where like you have your primitive like needs in like this slider, and like the primitive brain is like sliding, like, you know, horniness and hunger and pain, and he's just like sliding. And then there's this whole other like really advanced dashboard where, you know, you have the sort of consciousness driven mind, and it's just like, you know, all zen and like powering through energy and you know, not actually touching anything, and just like and they're, you know, the primitive mind doesn't even know that it exists, that the world exists, that this other mind exists, and the other mind is like, so it's like a pet, you know, kind of like he's got like the dog, like an untrainable dog, and so the mind, the consciousness driven mind is like gets really frustrated, and it's really interesting. I'll send you the link after.
I'll put it in the show notes for sure, man. It sounds really cool. We've gone down a rabbit hole, which I love, but I want to talk more about the barefoot movement that you're a massive advocate for, and kind of why you think that's so important, and some kind of much more tactical stuff that people should and could go out and experiment with, to try and, you know, just bring that kind of like that implicit value through. So you've got the Urban Barefoot, which is an awesome, I was just looking at, do some research for you, it's awesome kind of way of approaching life, because we all live in urban communities. So can you just expand on why you think being barefoot's the way forward? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, and kind of how you live your life, and some of the day-to-day strategies that you use to help your health and wellness.
Yeah. So the last 45 minutes have been an intro, and now but a necessary intro, because we're gonna sort of anchor back to some of the things that we already talked about. But so first of all, you as a human are perfect. Like the way that you were built, you have everything that you need to work your way through this experience, right? Like built in. It's all built in. And that, you know, I talked about, we have all the tools to heal ourselves. You just have to give the right environment, right? So we have everything that we need. If you needed more cushion, you would have had it. If you needed a lift under your heel, it would have been built in. Like, we've gone through way too many iterations of the human. And I'm not saying that we're like the ultimate perfect. I'm just saying you're perfect for right now, right? Like you have everything in your hand, and it was a process of many generations and many iterations and many trial and errors, and a lot of gene expressions, and millions and millions and billions of years, right? That's led to this moment. You have everything you need. So if you can be comfortable with that concept, then being barefoot is just kind of obvious, because it's just the natural way. It's just understanding that your body is capable of doing whatever you need it to do, as long as you feed it that input enough that it can adapt to it. So if from the moment you were born you never put on a pair of shoes, I mean, I can only imagine if you had one of these, like an NBA or NFL player who just spent their entire life barefoot and training barefoot and doing everything. I mean, I just think that the reason that it doesn't exist is because anyone who has led that lifestyle, just their whole perception and view of the world is different. They would just never go down that road for whatever reason. It's just that's what it appears to me like. But I can only imagine a world where, I mean, and there are versions of that in other parts of the planet, and those people are never suffer from any of the sort of issues that we suffer from in really up the whole chain: low back pain, Achilles tendonitis, Achilles ruptures, plantar fasciitis is like number one, right? Well, back pain is more than plantar fasciitis, but these are problems of comfort and of the Western world and of this lie that we've been telling ourselves that we're inherently broken and we need, this or that. And then, the cushions are everywhere. And I think like I've started to think that the cushion is the root of all evil. But it's really just this desire to be too comfortable is really detrimental for us. And we have to just reprogram the approach. So again, I've helped a lot of people over the last a couple of years, and I've come to this really deep realization that it's all about mindset first. Work on your view of the world, work on the lens with which you see the world, and the truth will always come out once you've done that foundational work. Until it clicks in your mind, and until you've connected the dots yourself, you can't possibly really change the lifestyle, because it will be forced. It will be too forced, and you will resist it. If there's no understanding of the why, then the how cannot exist sustainably.
Yeah, I agree. So you are living in Miami. It's an urban environment. Obviously, it's quite warm there, but so you're barefoot all the time. I know you have like lots of different barefoot shoes. What's kind of what's your kind of level one chat to someone who's interested but doesn't really have the mindset to just start doing it, or the confidence, or because I appreciate that it's difficult. Everyone else is wearing shoes. You're going to start taking those off. Doesn't quite feel right. We're creatures of kind of community, aren't we? We want to belong.
I was about to say I love that word, and me stepping out on a ledge and just doing it and walking around barefoot has empowered so many people to give it a try, because they're like, well, if he can do it, I can do it, and he's doing it all the time, so let's do it together. And that's what I've been trying to do, and we're actually in the process of starting a morning walking, like barefoot intentional walking group. So yeah, I mean, it's just about getting people involved, making them feel great, making them feel empowered, making sure that in the moments that they're trying it, that they tune in and they really internalize this feeling of this amazing feeling. Because when people start to walk barefoot and they stop and think about it, I usually get a response like, wow, this feels so good. Wow, I feel like, I can't believe that I've just been wearing shoes so much all the time. It's kind of reminding people. One of the things I really like to say is like, I'm not teaching people anything. I'm just reminding them. It's like we forget that we went through these first 6 years of our life, and we learned everything. You know, we had everything, we learned everything, and then we started to get totally corrupted, deprogrammed, reprogrammed, you know, by all of the things all the relationships that we had around us, whether by our choice or not. You know, sitting watching TV all the time, all the commercials. We were watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air the other day, and I realized that they all wear shoes in the house all the time. They're always wearing shoes. So these little things that we don't even realize that obviously now that I feel like all I see is feet these days, but you know, I notice these little things now. I'm like, wow, these things definitely help to shape my understanding of the world. So if I can help show people that and help them to you know, plant little seeds and then have them connect the dots of those seeds, and once they are able to do that, a whole new world opens up. And yes, it's all about community. So I have my community I have a couple communities here in Miami, and you know, I have my, you know, spirituality and mindfulness community. I have, you know, the fitness community, and I just try to tap in and like show them, from me being totally happy and feeling incredible, what's possible by just taking a slightly different approach, and then letting their approach be dictated by them based on this new understanding of the world and this new fund of knowledge.
Yeah, no, I think we're seeing a kind of a revolution in that space of people like yourself, and more sort of kind of well-known people, you know, just encapsulating the concept that kind of be the change, be the message, and advocate what they're doing, more so than trying to kind of inform, you know, trying to give that information or being really...
So when I work with practitioners quite a bit now, they approach me asking me, you know, how can I shift my practice and how I teach my patients, and all I say to them is build a relationship that's founded on love and respect with anybody, and that is all they need. That is all people need, is just more love and more trust. And if you can have that relationship with them, then that is the key to unlock the door of open-mindedness and of listening. You know, the story of the patient walking into the room and the doctor saying, hey, okay, you know, get into this gown, you know, take off your clothes and get into this gown, does the thing and leaves. Like, that doesn't do anything. It takes time. You got to build a relationship, and through the relationship is where you can access, you know, the doorways to deliver messages, because there's always like a wall put up for most people, and until you get through that, you can't make real change. So instead of trying to give them, you know, to teach them stuff and to give them stuff to take, just work on building a great relationship, and the right answers will just come. Right? It's not saying that you can't have conversations about, you know, how you see the world and stuff like that, but the purpose and the intention has to be to build a relationship. Period. The healing, a lot of the healing itself comes from building a solid relationship with someone. So much healing happens in just creating a new, strong, dependable relationship, because most people don't have any in their life, really. They really don't. And it's been very interesting to see. And, you know, going back to the guy with diabetes, like we built a relationship of love and fun and trust. And then when the time was right and when he was ready, when he felt comfortable, when he felt empowered through the strength of our relationship, he opened up and he allowed new ideas to flow into his world.
Yep.
And I know it's very, like, you know, hippie, like, you know, oh, just love and peace, but but just love, it provides so much healing and so much power and so much potential, and it will cascade from there.
Yeah, and my comment on that would be, well, I mean, I understand your comment on it. Kind of sounds kind of like new age and kind of hippie-esque, but I believe through the work that I've done is exactly what you're saying as well. Is for someone to truly change, what you really need to do is hold a mirror up to them, and if you trying to be either if you try and be sort of a clinical about it, or quote unquote professional about it, or have that viewpoint, or just a dick and just be like, this is who you are, it won't land. No, it won't land. So that's why the relationship is absolutely key, because, and you're saying it has to be done with love, and that's absolutely the right word. They've got to understand the message, understand that you're holding that mirror up through a position from a position of love, because otherwise it just won't land. We're blinkered to anything, quite rightly so, right? It's a protection mechanism. They're thinking, why should I trust someone who's not actually reflecting back what I need to see, which is the love and the respect.
Yeah, I've boiled love down to intense collaboration and radical self-expression, which is funny because they're opposite sides of the spectrum, right? So self-expression is your uniqueness, and then intense collaboration is you dropping all of your differences and coming together and participating together. So just things to think about. I've really come to this deep understanding that you build love through working together, but also loving it and just respecting each other's total uniqueness and whatever they want to express and do, no matter what, right? Radical self-expression. It's just a funny thought I've been playing with, and I read intensely, and these things just come up, and also these really profound new connections around how the world works for me come in these moments of flow. And when I get into the best, deepest flow is when I put myself through really, really challenging situations. I feel like you can start to create this sort of skill around flow on it's sort of two-tailed. So like when you're in a super relaxed Zen state, like just totally relaxed, and thoughts are flowing in and out of you. But then there's also like the super, super, super challenging, like, am I going to survive moments where just things become like incredibly clear. So, like the other day I went on a barefoot run in the dark on pavement, and I was scared. I was so scared. Like I was freaking out, but I just kept going through it. No music, no nothing. Like it was just me and my shorts and the road, like and the world. And I had so many amazing thoughts in those moments, and continuing to build on top of this knowledge that I'm creating for myself. So, little tips and tricks, get into flow, try to work on getting into flow states, like whether it's by being super, super relaxed and zen, or by super challenging yourself. And I prefer the super challenging myself part, because not only do I grow emotionally, spiritually, but I also physically grow and psychologically grow. I get to see the world as it really is, and not as we've been told it is. So anyway.
Ooh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. And so, I mean, we've talked about so many different things that you're up to. It's fascinating, and to dive into those is brilliant as well. So is there anything else that you're up to that we've not really touched on?
Well, so let's get a little bit more practical. So where to start? Start by educating yourself. Start by reading. Follow the people who are talking about being barefoot. Read the research studies. Just dig through it and build the connections within yourself. Create the understanding within yourself. Don't force it. Just if it calls you, go looking, right? Go digging and build your own story around why it matters, because life is just a bunch of stories strung together, right? And so you have to build your story, and the best way to get a full understanding of something is to be able to explain it to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So build it enough that you can explain it to somebody. And I think that's, once you knock down that first domino, they all start to fall. And not just in the sort of barefoot lifestyle, but in this minimalist lifestyle, in this simplification lifestyle, in the healthy lifestyle, because health is all about reducing. It's about taking away, about allowing the body to be the body, and allowing yourself to work through this life. It's not about being successful all the time, but it's about becoming better, all the time, and accepting every challenge as a gift, and reframing, changing the language. So speaking of changing the language, what I do in my day-to-day that feeds me the fuel to be able to deliver these messages around barefooting and just helping people with their wellness in their life mostly for free, is that I'm part of a group called Gaping Void, and we do culture design for big companies, which has been for me just like the perfect marriage of everything that I love about life. For me, it's all about helping people find their dream life, and what we do in this culture design business is sort of help people find meaning and purpose within companies. The pitch that we give to the company is a little bit different, because it's all about helping them improve their operations and improve their bottom line through people being more connected to their work. Mm-hmm. But I get to help people find their dream life through their work at scale, hundreds and thousands of people. Our clients we just finished a project for the Air Force at one of their bases, and now we're doing like 10 more. Microsoft's a big client. Zappos has been a client for a long time. Affecting change at huge scale, and doing it through language, doing it through emotion, through connection to these big emotional ideas that help people feel like they're part of a winning team on an inspiring mission, right? And whether that's absolutely true or not, it creates so much purpose and meaning and passion in people's lives. And that is what my life is all about. So, in my side life, I do it personally for people around their physical health and their mental health and their spiritual health. But then I get to do it at scale for all these people, by just helping them find more connection to the work that they do. Because in the world that we live in today, what you do for work is such a big, important, hairy part of your life. Sorry about the hair reference, but yeah, so I'm losing it too. So I've been trying to grow it out to like make it not look so going away.
You're going for a comb back.
Well, it's, if you look back here, there's a big gap.
I think you're doing all right. You're doing all right.
Yeah, but and so I actually started with this company right out of medical school. When I finished, it was a very serendipitous opportunity.
It's called Gaping Void.
Gaping Void. Check them out.
Interesting name.
Yeah. There's a whole long story, and it was it's birthed out of a blog that this illustrator that's our creative, a chief creative, had, and anyway. The concept is that if you attach a really powerful, connecting emotional message to an image, you create an opportunity for people to share really big, powerful, emotional ideas. And in so doing, shifting the conversation, shifting the language. And when you do that, you shift reality. Like you change the world, because the world is really just your perception of it. And it's all about the stories that you tell. So if you change the stories, you change the language, you change the culture. And the way that idea came about was very random. So they had a wine business, and they were using the cartoonist, the illustrator they were leveraging the cartoons to sell wine. But then they were doing it all based in London, and there's the Cambridge Innovation Center there, and there were a lot of Microsoft people there. And the Microsoft people were all super smart, and they wanted to they joined Microsoft because they wanted to have an impact on the world. But back in, the early 2000s, Microsoft was like the evil empire. So they're all super unhappy and disconnected. And so there's this big ambassador guy that was friends with my CEO and with the cartoonist, and they created this image that was like this little really rough blue monster guy, and it said Microsoft change the world or go home. And people fell in love with this thing, right? And they started printing on posters and spreading a total guerrilla, marketing, or it's not marketing, but sort of marketing-esque campaign, to the point where people were tattooing this blue monster on their body. And that helped them realize that if you take a really powerful emotional message, you connect it to an image, you turn it into a shareable opportunity that then people use as a tool to have a new conversation and to change the language, you can totally shift mindset and that way shift culture. So it's the last 12, 13 years have all been about reverse engineering that concept and like creating a very sustainable and systematized structure around executing that function. So it's all about creativity, language, artwork, and it's just, again, everything that I've done in my life has led me to this place and in the perfect, most beautiful way. And so that's what I do day to day. I don't want, people often reach out to me like, where's your clinic? Where can I, and I like to be very clear. Like, I'm not a licensed anything. I don't carry a license in any modality. I help people. I advise them. I coach them. I counsel them. If they have medical problems, helping them through the medical system. If they just want to be healthier, if they have, if they're just lost, we can start to have the conversation, build a relationship, love, everything we talked about. And I mostly do it for free. And when I say that, I mean, I don't have a rate. I don't charge, X amount per hour, Y amount per month. The deal is I will help you find whatever answers you're looking for within yourself. I will help guide you, give you, provide you with whatever you need. And you, based on the value that you feel that you receive from me, you can choose to contribute. On my website, I have a button. You can contribute through PayPal. You can make a donation in my name. You can send me a gift. Actually, that's my favorite one. Like, send me something meaningful, or nothing, or just nothing. And that's perfectly fine. But what I say is, like, if you do nothing, then you should evaluate whether I'm the right person for you, because clearly you don't seem to find value in the relationship that we're building, and that's fine. There's no hard feelings whatsoever. I've actually been trying to figure out how to make the contributions anonymous, so I just get like a batch payment every month, and like I don't know who sent me what. I don't want to hold any bias myself around the people that I'm working with, and based on like, oh, this guy paid me this much or this woman paid me that much. I don't care. That's not what this is about for me. And it's a really interesting sort of business model or economic model that I've been playing with. And there are other businesses that do this. There's a coffee shop in Denver that they don't charge you. You pay whatever you want. There's a restaurant in Israel. I was just in Tel Aviv. There's a restaurant there that you come, there's no menu. You sit down, they start bringing you plates. And at the end when you're done, you say, I'm done. And there's no check. You just pay whatever you want, or you pay nothing. No problem. No questions asked. No, nothing. And I'll tell you what, obviously it has to be based in a pure intention, the business itself, right? Like, we have to know about the owners, what they care about, who they are, but it pays back in huge dividends. And I'm not saying that, to say that model is correct or not, but it's all about the intention, and it's all about sort of the mindset that people have going into doing these things. Like, and for me, it's all about just helping people. And I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky. I'm blessed that I have the resources to be able to do this. That's not the same for everybody, and I understand that it's a process, right? But it took me it took me 29 years of building this, right? Like I had to build my own understanding of myself and my own journey in order to be able to do this. So there's people who say, oh, well, he's well off. That's not fair. But I built this for myself, right? I've created the life that I want to live in, and and trust me, there were times of tons of stress and tons of and a lot of unhappiness and a lot of you know reflection, ups and downs, just like everybody else. And yes, I have been very blessed and very lucky to have a great support structure from my family and my friends and my community. So
that's awesome. I'm blown over. I'd love to talk to you about the gaping void stuff in a sec if you're willing to chat about that. But
yeah.
But what you've just said has blown my mind, because I think, I guess the kind of the easiest way to kind of ask you the kind of challenging question is, so I say, as a professional, someone wants to be coached by me. Now, a lot of the guys that come to me quote unquote for fitness, and that's kind of my kind of a gateway to helping them be healthier and live a better life. But and that's due to my background, that's kind of practice, blah blah blah. But
and by the way, I checked out your website. Everything is really cool stuff. I really like it.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to invest more time in it. A bit like yourself, you have to do the work up front. But I guess when people come to me, I look for and ask for, as a coach, I look for an upfront investment. And the comments that I have, I'm being very frank in this conversation, more candid than I probably have ever been, is the conversations go something like, well, how much is it, blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, you need to make an investment in your own health. And in this day and age, when we've all got $1,000 phone in our pocket, that investment is financial. 100 years ago, as a kind of coach, someone that helps people, there probably wouldn't be any sort of financial aspect to what I did. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't require money because I'd be in a community that I served and therefore would serve me. So I'm of the, up until now, I guess, I'm of the opinion that the investment needs to be upfront and needs to be financial. Otherwise, that person is not committed. And I want to coach people that really are invested and want to make change for the right reasons, I guess. And therefore, it makes it a commercial transaction, which has its problems. I completely understand that. But that's my angle. And I think lots of people in our space's angle. And certainly there's a massive marketing machine that tries to target guys like us and kind of get them to do more of that stuff, because it perpetuates the economic machine. So with that said, what would you say to someone like me who said, well, this is what I say and this is what I do? Why wouldn't you do it that way?
Yeah, so a transaction can be a very big spark for a lot of people to get them to move and feel compelled to do it. But I've realized that the sustainability of that is still a bit fleeting, right? So it becomes about the money, and it becomes not about me. It becomes about the money that I'm investing. And I love that you use the word investing, because I've done a lot of work myself on not using the word spending or not using the word, like cost. It's an investment. You are investing in your health, and I'm not saying that the current structure is wrong. It is what it is. It needs to exist today, because exactly what you're saying, we don't live in these tight communities where we serve our communities and the community serves us back. We have to sustain our life. We have to, continue to have the resources that we need to continue to do the great work that we're doing. But I think that if you started to just conceptualize this business model and let it grow over time slowly and find opportunities to make the shift into that business model, you're going to be you're gonna down the road feel more fulfilled, happier yourself as a giver of information and of knowledge and of health. Feel happier, and you're going to, and that's going to feed back to you financially. It will. I've talked to the owners of businesses like this, and they all say that it is an extremely lucrative model. But it's all based in faith, trust, and love, and those. If you have those things, you're gonna do well. It's just about you know, at the beginning, being able to float yourself long enough to sort of weather some challenge. But I think that for a practitioner just starting off, absolutely transaction, fee for service, whatever you call it. But I think that if people took on the challenge of always starting that way, but working on shifting it over time, that I think really magical, amazing things could happen. And it's also a very humbling experience for you, because you may think that your time is worth X amount of dollars per hour, but you're gonna find out that maybe it's worth that it's worth a different amount. And that's one of the reasons why I like to do it, is because it's an ego thing, right? How much you charge for your time. It really is. I mean, it is. It's, oh, I think I'm worth $200 an hour. My fee was like, I think I had it at like 150 an hour. And the first session was like $300. Like, where did I come up with these numbers from? Like, that's, you can justify by saying, well, I know how much my life is worth, like how much my time, I need, how much I spend in my life, and I can, sort of work backwards from there and figure out what I need to charge per hour to be able to do that. But who said that what you decided around how much you're spending in your life is correct right now? Like we don't have any, there's no script or algorithm around, well, if I make this much money, I'm allowed to spend this much money, or this is how much in general a human should spend per week or per month or per meal or per day. There's no such thing. And you can always reduce your spending, your own spending. And I've done a lot of shaving off of like unnecessary spending. And just because I'm connected to a very deep why. And so the decisions become very easy. I know what I'm trying to do, so every decision tracks back to that, and it becomes really simple to like decide whether to use something or not, or invest in something or not. I invest in a lot of programs online because I want to see what other people are doing. I want to learn. I want to be fully immersed and just have a deep understanding of everything, because as a practitioner, I feel it's sometimes a bit foolish to advise people on things that you haven't tried yourself. Yeah. So I fast, I do the cold plunges, I do barefooting. I've done all types of workouts. I've done them all. Bar classes, Pilates classes, CrossFit, yoga, boot camps. I've done that. I've done pretty much all of them, because I cannot. How am I going to speak fluently if I've not tried it? So I've started to try out. It's called sadhana. It's Kundalini yoga is like a very meditative form of yoga, not very much movement based. It's like ancient technology of like how to supercharge your emotions and your preparation for the day. And so in Kundalini yoga, there's a practice called sadhana, which is a 4 a.m. 2.5 hour meditation that happens every single morning, and that these people do every morning, understanding that the human was actually supposed to be up and going by 4 a.m. But, people used to ask me questions about this all the time, and I was like, I've never been. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna start going in. Actually, I went for the first time on Sunday, and I was just blown away by it. I'm gonna definitely be doing more of that. It was very.
So you got up 4 a.m. on a Sunday to do this?
Yeah. And I had a cacao ceremony that night, which was beautiful, and I went to sleep a little later than I hoped. But when you're excited about something, you're gonna try something for the first time, you wake up and you do it. And so that shows you that there's something more than I need to get this much sleep or to be productive or to be on point. Like there's something more. There's something else, right? There's excitement and the passion and all this stuff, and it can totally shift your experience of the world, right? So like usually at 4 a.m. or if I woke up at 3 or 4 a.m., I'd be pretty tired, but in this case, I was up and off and feeling amazing and like excited. And so there's been moments in my life when I've had to do this, and I've just been able to do it excitedly. Like when I was doing when Puerto Rico had all the hurricanes. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, so I really helped to set up one of the big foundations to get relief supplies. And I was sleeping 3-4 hours a night for 3 weeks, trying to set up this whole like logistics and supply chain, basically business, to get relief stuff down to Puerto Rico. So everyone's collecting donations, and like they had no way of getting it down because of the regulations and, you know, import export there. But we built it, and literally 3 weeks straight, I slept 3-4 hours, and I felt more energized and empowered than ever. And I'm not saying that people should do that. It's probably not very healthy, but there's more to life than these rigid things that they've told us. You have to sleep 8 hours, and you have to, you know, there's more to it, more to the story.
Yeah, of course. And you know, they're so we tend to create these well, it's just a narrative, it's just a story, isn't it? But we tend to think there are rules and laws around what we should be doing and what we should be wearing, where should we be going, where should we be spending our money, how much money we should have, you know. And actually, the more you delve into it, the more you realize that it's all a bit of a fallacy, and there's no substance to any of it, because a guy down the road might think that, you know, $1,000 on a meal out is not very much, and someone else might think, well, that they'll never spend that in their lifetime. Do you know what I mean? It's such a contrast. It just highlights the hypocrisy of that mindset, that way of thinking. My query, I guess, would be: have you ever kind of coached any other practitioners or people to move to that? I guess you'd call it a patronage model.
So I call it the accountability economy. So one thing that this does is it really helps to hold you accountable to deliver an amazing experience, because you want to get compensated for it. You know, you want to be able to keep your movement going, and the way to keep your movement going is to continue to have the fuel to keep it going. Mm-hmm. And so have I coached specifically people on this? No. Have I told a lot of people about this? Absolutely. And that's the thing, is I'm putting the message out there, and I know that when the time is right, the person who really wants to do this will approach and ask the right questions, and we'll go down the road. But then it becomes really interesting, because again, how do you charge for teaching someone how to not charge?
Well, it sounds like some crazy pyramid scheme or something. I don't know. It sounds crazy, right?
It's a pyramid of nobody making money.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got, you know, it sort of threads through, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. A pyramid of kind of accountability. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, accountability.
Really interesting.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And the word accountability is a very powerful word, right? And if we took, you know, 1% more accountability every day, you know, every single person, the world would be an incredible place, because everybody would take full responsibility for and going back to your statement about, you know, spending and it's all a construct. It is. And anytime that you see that there's an inconsistency across people in their thinking, that is a construct. That is not reality, right? There are only a few real truths, and everything else is a construct. So anytime that you see that people disagree on something or see something differently, it's a construct. It's not real.
Okay. So you
know, going back to spending $1,000 on a meal. One person thinks it's normal. The other person thinks it's incredibly too much money. It's a construct. It's not. It's a mental model. It's not real. It's not a truth or a law of the world.
Yeah,
I think there are very few laws of the world.
Yeah, there are. You know, I'd absolutely agree with that. So what you're saying is, wherever there's a kind of a differencing of opinions, then actually there's either a misunderstanding or there's another truth that's hidden that people aren't sort of tapping into. That's really interesting, actually. And I'm definitely going to spend some time thinking about this accountability model, because that's blown my mind. It absolutely has. Okay. Let's dive into, I just want to be respectful of your time as well, Jeff. Let's dive into the gaping void stuff. So I guess threading that through, do you think that accountability model would work in a corporate structure, in a business structure?
Oh, the thing is, you know, one thing that I've noticed is that you have to create a very real filter around who you work with in this way, because there is the opportunity to be taken advantage of, and in the problem in a company is that there are too many people involved. There's just too many people. And could it work? I could see where a world where it works, but you'd have to be really, really selective of who you work with. So, I'm reminded of the story of how the Google guys selected their CEO back a few years ago, and they have a really rigorous process. But at the end of the process, the last barrier to entry is you have to come to Burning Man with us, and you got to make it through, like, emotionally, community wise. Like, you gotta show us that you can thrive in this environment, in this really tough environment. And so the point of me saying that is, like, you have to create some sort of filter to figure out and to weed out the people who may not have, or whose intentions may not be aligned with yours. So, and I'm still trying to figure out what's that test that you can create, that you can't cheat, that no one can cheat, and that it's like extremely real. And it's funny, Burning Man is a great example of like a uncheatable test. Like, the only way to make it through Burning Man is to make it through Burning Man. You can't cheat your way through it. Like, and so the funny thing is, so I have this the balance beam under me right now, and the balance beam is a great example of a test that you cannot cheat. The only way to cheat the balance beam is to get good at the balance beam. So you're not cheating it; you're just doing it. So I've still been trying to reason how I can create some sort of test or some sort of something that proves to me, without a doubt, that this is somebody that whose intentions are aligned with mine.
So yeah, it's not easy. I guess it's not easy. Okay, let's jump through. So the Gaping Void, I just love the name of that company, man. Yeah. I'm really going to study this. So presumably you've done it for something like Zappos, which a shoe company. So presumably there are some relatively menial tasks there that people kind of turn up to, because I think this is one of the biggest issues that's out there, and I'm sure you believe it is, that people have got into a trudge at work, and then they've got that cycle of believing that that's what they have to do to meet their needs, and then they go to work, and suddenly 30, 40, 50, 60 years have passed. You know what I mean? That's just, and for me, that's scary, right? That is scary. And I've gone through careers through short shrift because I'm scared of that more than I am than actually going through the trudge. So I've had different sort of ideas around that.
We've touched on the fact that anything that people disagree on is a construct and not a fact. So in the business world, there are two ways of looking at the work that you do. One is, I have to do this, and this is, to sustain my life. And the other one is, I get to do this. I have the privilege of being able to work for a company and work for a company I believe in, and work for a company that's doing amazing things. Let's say we have a client down here in Miami, and a lot of the employees are very unhappy, but then there's other employees who are like, just, find so much happiness in gratitude, right? Like, I get to do this. I want to do my best work. I want to deliver an amazing product when it's requested of me. And so it's again, constructs. Like, you can see your job as like a pain in the ass and this problem thing that you need to do in order to make money, or you could see it as, people have put their trust in me. They're paying me to do something for them. I want to do my best work. And the funny thing is that once you adopt that mindset, you're going to grow in the company really quickly. Like, you're going to go up or move somewhere else. You're going to get recruited. People will see, because it's all about work. You can only work on yourself. 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 Like, you can only work on yourself. Is that kind of the message that you guys go in with as kind of that consultancy model as you go into other companies? Is that kind of the root of the messaging that you put through? Part of our pitch, because it's all about, if we're able to change the conversation and the language that people use, like I said earlier, we can change the whole mindset. We can change all of the beliefs. But the pitch is, it depends who we're talking to. But if we're talking about, executives, it's all about how will this improve your business? We are actively seeking executives who are just more spiritually connected and who understand the value of this, so we don't have to pitch it that way. and that's sort of one of our tests. So I'm actually going to our marketing efforts and our business development efforts are going to be focused more on events like Burning Man, like Summit, the Summit series, like Envisions, places where really successful people go deeper into themselves and to tap deeper into their potential. And so those are the people that I'd like to work more with, that I know will align with our message and that will find value and will be champions. I don't really like the word champions, but will help to push this, our project with them forward and be a conduit of this way of doing. Because at the end of the day, it's just about the leadership's got to be in, right? Like the leadership is like the brains of the operation. And if the understanding of the mindset's not there at the top level, it's not going to work. The CEO of a company these days is really a spiritual leader. They're the ones who people look up to. They go, wow, I work for, people don't say, some people say I work for Tesla. Most people say I work for Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. I work for Tony Hsieh, who's been an amazing, just disruptor of the way, the way of doing work.
Awesome. That's really interesting work. And I've never heard of that company or kind of the way that way of thinking about things. Jeff, I want to be really respectful. I know we run over, and I want to kind of in the words of Rich Roll, I want to land this ship. We've danced around so many, and we've gone deep into so many different topics and subjects that I'm walking away with kind of loads more questions that I'd love to chat to you about, and I'd love to kind of have another chat at some point in the future for sure. And you've opened my eyes to lots of things, which isn't always the case on podcasts. I think as an interviewer, you kind of like, you're asking questions where you predispose the answers, but certainly not been the case to you. And I just want to acknowledge you for that, for being an awesome guest, and the fantastic work that you're doing. But more importantly, the approach that you're taking, and the willingness and the courage that you've got to kind of throw the rule book out, and kind of carve your own path and define your own path and kind of sit with your own thoughts and fears and aspirations and dichotomies and try and work out what the right path for you is, because that's no mean feat, and that's the hard work, right? So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that.
Oh, thank you. I'm very grateful. In closing, you can only work on yourself. You every single person. You cannot change other people. You cannot change the things. You can change your mind, and when you change your mind, everything changes, and it's all the same, but it's all totally different, right? And so that's the sort of apex of all this learning has led me to that concept, is like, just work on yourself, and that's and the world will open up to you, and it'll be amazing, because it is amazing. It's just you realizing it. Yeah, definitely.
Thank
you so much for having me on, and this was a fantastic conversation, and I think we both grew a lot from it, and it's perfect.
Yeah, man. I want to end it there. Where can they find you, Jeff? Where can they get involved?
So just look up the Urban Barefoot on Instagram, on Facebook. I have a YouTube page, which I've been very lazy about. I'm sorry about that. My website is theurbanbarefoot.co. You can, my contact info is there. You can reach out to me on Instagram. Even though I'm getting 40, 50 messages a day, I still attend to all of them however I can. So that's pretty much it.
Wicked,
thank you,
man. Thank you very, very much, Jeff. It's been awesome. Thank you, brother. It's been an amazing conversation, and I hope we speak again soon.
We will. Take care. Have a great day.
Wow. Okay. I'm intrigued to know what you guys thought of that episode. It felt really unique to me and really special in terms of the conversation that we had. I've, like I said at the start in the intro, I walked away completely blown, and now listening through it again, it's kind of got me kind of spinning off in new directions and completely rethinking kind of how I've approached certain things and certain aspects of what I do. So I'm blown away. I hope you guys are. I really appreciate your support in this venture, and I hope you're getting a lot out of these episodes. Certainly there's a lot to dig into and ponder in that one there. So thank you very much to Jeff. Please go and follow him and engage with him. You got any questions, ask him. You heard his model, so it's a free kind of a free shot at speaking to him and helping him understand if he can help you, I guess. And as always, please subscribe, support us with a good review on whatever app you use. Any questions, any things you want to hear more of, you can contact me. I'm at The Knock, THENOQ, on Facebook, Instagram. Those are usually the best places to get hold of me. And please tell someone about this podcast so we can grow the movement and keep moving forwards. Thank you very much. Until next time, take care.